Okay, so time to continue on our merry way, and I'm going to start by selecting these faces at the top here in the center of our object. Well, what I'd like to do is shrink these in. Remember, we've got an additional housing that we've got to create for the gear, so that can be spinning inside. And so that I can see through my reference image, I'm just going to go ahead and jump back into my top view so that I can see what I need to see. Right click on the object, material attributes, and go ahead and crank up my opacity a little bit. Alright, now I've got that done. Edit mesh, extrude. Okay, I can just use my scale tool if I want on this one. And just go into it. Okay, that's about where I'm looking to scale to. That'll be my solid area there. And we'll go ahead and we'll knock out these sections of the rings or the donuts a little bit later on. For now, we're just getting a basic form laid down. Okay, that's good. And now I'm just going to go ahead and start extruding down. Okay, and come to my side view so that I can basically match up where I was extruding down to previously. Somewhere around there should be good. Okay, now lastly, I'm just going to make a couple more extrusions. So one at the bottom. So G on my keyboard, you can see it's repeating that extrusion. So that's giving me a hard crease on the floor when I scale it in. And I'm just going to press G one more time, use my scale tool this time, pressing on the keyboard, and bring this right the way in. Alright, now if we just have a look under smoothed, okay, you can see it's kind of got this turbine inlet, kind of looks like a cowl on a jet engine. Not quite the look we're going for, so let's go ahead and you can see it's only got the one edge to define it. Insert some edge loops. Edit mesh, insert edge loop tool, and get up close and personal. Here we go. Loop around there, loop around there. And we're in business. Okay. Let's have a look. Material attributes. Okay. Yeah, it's looking good. Okay. So let's look at extending this down now. I'm pretty happy with this interior. I've basically got to put that little gear in. And then you can't actually see, it looks like there's a little bit of a lip there. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can see I've got this these three rings right here, and I want to kind of, the lip starts in the midsection of this cylindrical form. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert an edge loop tool. Insert edge loop tool, and insert that here. And now what I'm going to do is I want to select these three loops, right? This loop that goes around, this loop that goes around, and this one that goes around. So I can double click on the loop. Okay? If it's a loop, you'll be able to double click. So just double click, hold Control and Shift, and you can double loop like so. Now I've got three loops selected, right? Make sure I don't have any other. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I drag down. Okay. So it's kind of like that's a bit over a 45, maybe something like that. I'm looking over here. And if I hit 3 on the keyboard, well, it's got a nice hard edge here, but it's gone all soft up here. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a couple more edge loops right alongside this one. So I'm using the keyboard shortcut Alt-I and pop one in here and one in here. And that should be pretty good. All right. Let's go ahead and put that gear in real quickly. Okay, so one, and I'm just going to go over to my material attributes. You know what? This time let's just use the X-ray and jump in here. X-ray. Okay, we can see that gear is kind of over that space there. But it's mostly the core is there, and then we've got those little fins that come off it. So I'm going to create that as a separate object, right? That's rotating around. The rest of this is all stationary. So model it as a separate object. My polygons, cylinder, and say about there. Okay, now if we jump out of the top view and into a perspective view, we can see it's middle of nowhere. That's to be expected. It's going to create near the origin because we're clicking the top view. So I'm just going to go ahead and hold Shift, make sure I'm in object mode. Hold Shift, grab this. I'm going to repeat that process and modify, snap align, align objects. All right, it's going to align the pivot point of this newly created cylinder to the base of the blender here. Okay. Now we jump to the top. I just want to make sure that this is roughly the correct size, and that looks good. So I just moved it and then Control Z. So you can see it's got a little base to it as well that the fins rest on. And now it depends. If you want it to be ultra correct, I think on this one you'd go ahead and actually model those fins as separate pieces of geometry. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky and save some time. Just go ahead and model it out from this cylinder. So I'm going to drag the cylinder down to just about the bottom, and I'm just going to I'll go into my vertices mode, jump into my side view, and then pull them up. Okay. You can see in the original photo that they're up above that fallen lip. So something like that. And then what I'm going to do is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that right? Seems like a weird number. Okay, 7. So if we want to extrude those out of here, that's weird to do things like 7. We could, set the correct number of divisions, but it gets a little messy to divide 360 by 7. So instead I'll renege on what I said, and I'm going to go ahead and create a little box. So something like that. Drag it up, and just going to pull it up to the level where it should be. Okay, something like this. Now, what I'd like to do is to actually position this, to the side, so that's roughly the correct size. It's probably a little bit. Control A to bring up the channel box, and let's see. That's not the one we want. It's this one. Okay, so something like that for its height. And now what I'd like to do is get it so that it's just sitting basically at the edge here, and bring these vertices in a little bit because they're a little bit far out. You know what, let's go ahead and put it over here, closer to one of these actual fins. Now what I want to do is I actually want to rotate this fin around, right? Just before I do that, let's make sure it is connecting on. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And it looks like they're leaning a little bit, these fins, so I'll grab the top vertices, drag them up, and pull them over, something like that. That looks like they're going the other way. Okay, and then just going to grab the face on the inside. Oh, all right. So I've got all the faces. Control to deselect the other faces, and then I'm just going to go ahead and extrude. Okay, so, and this extrusion, why, is actually just so I can shrink it. Right? I don't want to extrude that entire face, otherwise it'll look like a continuous form, right? I want it to look like a slightly smaller version. So I'm going to scale it just a little, and then I'm going to extrude it again. Right? So pressing G on the keyboard, pulling that out. All right, that suits me. So now what I would like to do, using the Move tool selected, you can see I've got this position roughly where I'd like. So I want it to be roughly in the middle here. And I want to create versions of this that are just situated around the central form. So rather than trying to manually, duplicate this and rotate it into position, we can automate that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it is 7. I just can't get over that. So what I'm going to do is if I say rotate, right now it rotates about itself. And let's just have a look at the rotate tool. You can see it's set to local. So the rotation for this object, the local rotation for this object is set there. And that's because the pivot point is just about at the center of that object that I created. You can see it's kind of a little bit lower than the center. So what I want to do is actually set this pivot point to where this object is. And that's going to make it a little easier for me. So what I'm going to do is, on my keyboard, just go ahead and press, I've got my, there I go, my dust, so I'm a little blind. Insert, and I want to go ahead and choose snap to point, right? And if we turn on our, where is this wireframe shading? Right, we can see that that's in the middle there, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and that's good. Okay, we've shifted the pivot point of our object. I'm going to turn off, okay, our edit pivot point mode, and now I just need to duplicate this object around 7 times. So to figure out how many times we need to duplicate it, we just count them out. You can see the 7, and then we have to figure out basically 7 into 360. So I'm just going to go ahead and run the calculator, so calc, and say 360 divided by 7, 51.43. Okay, so I'm going to go up here to edit and duplicate. Okay, with transform, and so now I'm going to go 51.4. Let's try that again. 51.4, watching the bottom left. There we go. So now we've done that, and we should just be able to go ahead and say repeat that, right? So Shift D, so Shift D, and away we go. Okay, so we come back here and have a look. We've got that central gear. Okay, that's going to drive the actual blender, and that's coming along. You can finesse that a little bit more if you want to bevel some of those edges or play around with smoothing. Go ahead and do it. Anyway, in the next video we'll be continuing on and working our way down the blender body. See you there.